Arts Commission on Tuesday. Wait, it's Monday. This is going to be fun. On Monday, March 8th, 2021. Let's see. Pledge of Allegiance first. Is that what we do first? Have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we have a roll call? Who does the roll call?
I do that.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to do the roll call, but before I do that, I wanted folks to know I have some very sad news to tell everybody that our vice chair, Katrina Steinberger, passed away. So I know this was a shock to all of us, and I'm sorry I didn't email out anything ahead of time.
Oh my God!
Yes, I know, it's terrible. You know, we sent out the agenda last Wednesday, and I got an email the next day from Jesse Gage, who's her significant other. And Jesse sent me a nice email. I read it, got it right away. I called him right away on the phone. He answered. We had a pretty good conversation. And so first I'd like to do just kind of a moment of silence for Katrina. So if we would do that and everybody think about Katrina. All right, so thank you. What Jesse did share is that he has a very good network of friends, because I asked him if there's anything we can do. Katrina had apparently in 2018 breast cancer, so it's been a little bit of a battle. And then I think she got COVID, according to an email a few meetings ago. So whether it was a combination, I don't know, but it's tragic for her and Jesse and everybody. And so I just had a conversation with Jesse Gage about, doing something. I know that we're going to be talking next month with Liz for the parks, and I think one of our first art projects. We've actually had 2 of our members pass away now from the arts board. And so I think it's appropriate for the city to we're just kind of getting started as an arts board and tell us something here? No, I'm not. Who's next, Liz? But it's not Liz, but so I just think when talking to him that we do have the Friends of Apache Junction and people can make donations. I think it would be, according to Jesse, it would be a nice gesture if individually as a group or whatever we think about doing something through the Friends of Apache Junction. They're our 501c3. They're setting up a mechanism through the Friends to take donations for the new off-leash dog park, which is going to have art. And so Liz Langebach's going to come next month. So I'll just leave it at that for now. And I think we can just be thinking about a way that, we can pay tribute to folks. So, all right, with that, I'm going to call the roll now. Chair Buys, did you get on the call? Commissioner Coe? Commissioner Danford? Here. Commissioner Ham?
Present.
Commissioner Klett?
Present.
Commissioner Nicholas?
Here.
Okay, so we have roll call next. We'll have the motion for the agenda.
Yes, I'd like to call for a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Do we approve the agenda for tonight?
Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Ham. I second the motion.
All right, then the agenda is approved for...
Well, I got to do a roll call.
Oh,
Commissioner Danford,
Yes.
Commissioner Ham,
Yes.
Commissioner Klett,
Yes.
Commissioner Nicholas.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I hope everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our February 8th meeting. If so, I'd like to, if there are no objections or changes, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes from the February 8th meeting of 2021.
This is Commissioner Ham. I move that the Public Art Commission approve the minutes from the February 8th, 2021 regular meeting.
And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Commissioner Ham,
Yes.
Commissioner Klett,
Yes.
Commissioner Nicholas,
Yes.
Commissioner Danford.
Yes.
Okay. So we didn't get any announcement of artwork from anybody. I think we were waiting for Chair Bice, so we didn't get anything last week. No public hearings. I'd like to skip ahead to the discussion consideration of the logo. So Matthew McNulty is here, and we're going to pull that up. And so that's another vote item, and then we can I think I'd like to move to item 9 after that, and then kind of fold in the work plan as we talk about that.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to.
Does that work?
Hello.
There he is.
Can you hear me at home there?
This is
Yes.
Commissioner Ham. I can hear you.
Thank you. Okay, so I believe you did receive in your packets. After our last meeting, this was definitely what I gathered from it, what you wanted to see. Let me make sure this is 2 pages. Both the vertical and the horizontal. The difference between the two obviously is as recommended. You wanted to see one where we left the art or vice versa colored, or as Chairman Bias had suggested, is let's try the whole letter block just the same color. So I'm here to gather any more feedback you want, or just get the marching orders to put this together in a style guide and go forward.
I like the single color block of public art rather than mixing up the colors.
This is Commissioner Ham. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Danford on this one.
So somebody can make a motion so that we get it on the floor and vote and see where it goes, I guess.
Okay, does someone want to make a motion to accept that as presented, the logo that has the public art in the same color? We're looking at it in color, it's completely blue, instead of dividing it up and having it in 2 different colors.
I will move that we accept the logo that has the solid color block in blue.
Second to that motion?
I'll second it, Commissioner Klett.
Okay, so the vote is Commissioner Klett,
Yes.
Commissioner Nicholas,
Yes.
Commissioner Danford,
Yes.
Commissioner Ham.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. You have a logo. We have a logo.
We have
Yay.
a logo.
Thank
We
you.
have a logo.
Okay, very good one.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, so if I could, acting Madam Chair. So I think we want to come back to the work plan because I think it involves number 9, our new business. Presentation discussion with Diane D. Kripe of Art Space 6 LLC regarding implementation of Ordinance 1477, art in public and private development and assistance to the Commission to carry out the purpose of the Commission. So I'm going to go back in time for some of us. The council, I don't know, 18 months ago, there was well, it went back further than that, but talking about whether to have an arts commission. Staff came in, gave a presentation, kind of talked about Oro Valley, some other cities, what their fee mechanism was. That led to a council discussion where we, in our department, Development Services, contracted with Diane of Art Space 6 to essentially put together the rationale, the background more formally to the council as to whether to create a public art commission or not. Obviously, that was successful. Diane gave us a lot of resources, a bunch of ordinances. We put all that together. Then that was kind of the end of her contract, if you will, with the city. So staff then put together, as we've talked about in the past, we have the section of the city code that creates the Arts Commission, and the council approved that. Joel was instrumental in getting that done. We have the fee structure that we modeled from other cities. We went to several work sessions with the council to help them figure out what do we want to charge for fees at the time of the building permit. Then the third part of this is Ordinance 1477, which is the zoning code. So when development comes in, we have a mechanism to review the development if they want to have their own development or they want to pay in fee in lieu of. So now fast forward to this meeting last year, and then the next meeting was COVID, and we kind of shut everything down for about 4 or 5 months on the commission, didn't even meet. And then we kind of got going again, and in the meantime, Heather Patel, who worked in our office, she was going to staff this commission. So then Larry and Sydney are nominated in the democracy to move forward and with this. And then what happened, though, was as planners, we're getting very busy with development. Some of it's good because it brings in revenue for future art, but the big project we're working on now is the state land auction that's 3,000 acres. And there will be commercial in there, and there will be revenue generated from that project. So Sydney's the project manager for that 3,000 acre development. So it involves rezoning and development agreements and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we just don't have the time that this commission deserves to be spent on this to get things going. So as we have been talking about internally, I talked to the city manager and the assistant city manager of, how do we staff this? You'll still see us because we'll come to the meetings, but how do we get the first piece of art installed? That's public art, whether it's at the off-leash dog park, whether it's at Flatiron Park, whether it's at the roundabout. So I guess I got to thinking that maybe we could re-enlist Diane, and she could help us with some tasks that are related to the work plan. And so she's given us a scope of services. I want to introduce Diane tonight. And I think, did you hand this one pager out yet? So we could do that to kind of kick things off. But essentially, we have revenue that's come in from Filiberto's, from Dutch Bros. So when they get their building permit, that is the funds under a certain building size. I think it's 3,000 square feet. We get a fee in lieu of. We've got 100,000 that's come in from some multifamily development. So now we have money to really do the first art, and I think it's just going to limp along if Sydney and I are doing it and we're distracted by these other projects. We just finished up the general plan. We've got the zoning code we have to fix. We're making other changes to codes. Again, when projects keep coming in, other projects. So I thought, well, let's have Diane take a look at this. So I kind of wanted her to introduce herself, some of her background. We got to talking to her on the phone. We talked a little bit about Goodyear. Goodyear's been doing this about 10 years, but they were where we are now, they were 10 years ago. And so I don't know if, I think we actually showed some slides from one of the commissioners about some of the art in Goodyear. So I think that's where we'd eventually like to go. But, we just have to be honest here and tell you we can't do this justice right now. So I think to serve the community, to serve this commission, we're kind of at this point of hiring Diane with a professional services agreement and a scope of services that might get us for the next 6 to 9 to 12 months to get into the first installation. So Diane, if you want to come up, you can talk at the podium. Again, she doesn't have a presentation. We're just going to have a discussion, really.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dianeripe, and I'm excited to be back and see some familiar faces. Basically, I've been doing public art for about 20 years. I've worked for ASU as Director of Public Art, and then that led to starting up a program for the City of Goodyear, which I'll talk about a little bit more at length. I've also worked for the State of Hawaii Art in Public Places program, which involved 5 different islands for that state, City of Sacramento and City of Las Vegas. So I've gotten to see how a lot of cities, both large and small, have instituted their public art program. I think the one experience that would be most apropos to the city of Apache Junction is, as Larry mentioned, the City of Goodyear. So it's about 2008 when the City of Goodyear City Council and the mayor, Georgia Lord, is a huge fan of art in public places. They started an arts commission. They started an ordinance. They don't have art and private development, but they have a city ordinance. The city was just growing leaps and bounds, and there were a lot of municipal buildings. Probably the biggest project there was when they opened up the spring training facility for the Cincinnati Reds and the Cleveland Indians. And that has become a venue unto itself, but that afforded a large amount of money for public art, specifically for the training facility. It was about $450,000. So basically, I went through the whole process of coming up with a request for qualifications. There were a lot of stakeholders involved. There were, in addition to City Council and the Arts Commission, you had different baseball commissions that were involved. The Cleveland Indians wanted to be very involved. And so that was a very, very big project. When the artist was selected, his name is Donald Lipsky, who now resides in New York City. His first idea for this was creating a large sculpture out of baseball bats. And it was going to be in the feather, symbol of a feather, which is sacred to the Native American culture. And after public meetings and after my talking to some of the local tribes, they were not for that idea. So I went back to the artist and we talked about it. And he said, well, I still want to have that kind of same format, which is based on an early modernist sculpture, but this time I'm going to make it in like an elongated baseball. And that struck a chord with all the different stakeholders, and it's about 60 feet tall. So that was a huge project. Probably in terms of budget, it's probably the biggest project that I've managed. But we've done a lot of small projects in Goodyear. There's a historic area, which was when the city was incorporated, and cotton was the primary, cotton and farming were the main industries. So there were some monuments that were created for the older section of the Goodyear. And then there were just more other development. There's Public Works Department building and so forth. So I thought I would just bring those up to let you know that, public art can be anything to any city. Whatever you see your city as, whatever you see your city vision as, that gets translated into public art. And no two cities are the same. For instance, Las Vegas, what works there is not going to work in Sacramento. What works in Sacramento is probably not going to work in Apache Junction. And we have such beautiful natural beauty in Apache Junction throughout lots of different areas of the valley that many times the artwork reflects that desert beauty. The desert, the animals of the desert, the cacti, all those things get reflected in the art. I bring up the project in Goodyear because there are potential pitfalls in whatever you commission. And you have to be careful of cultural appropriation. You have to be careful of making sure that there are public meetings so that the stakeholders are involved. If it's going to be placed in a neighborhood, you definitely want to reach out to people in that neighborhood, because the worst thing is you come up with a great idea, the artist has a great idea, you install the art, and then the neighborhood comes back and say, well, we don't like it. Too late. Then sometimes it's not too late. Sometimes the artwork gets moved. But so there are a lot of pitfalls. There's also knowing artwork that's going to survive our climate. There are colors, like red is a very fugitive color, and you've got to be really careful with certain colors out in the desert. The materials, bronze gets stolen just right off the bat. People commission bronze sculptures, and voila, a year later it's been stolen. So, there are a lot of things to be taken into consideration. And probably the first step is deciding, what do you want your program to reflect? How do you want your public art program to reflect this area? And then how do you go about deciding what are the key areas where you want to cite that public art, and how much funding do you want to allocate to that? Whether it's a dog park, whether it's a municipal building, art and private development, if they're contributing in lieu funds, or if you have to approve what it is that they want to put on their particular place. Public art can become an eyesore very quickly if it's not taken care of. Tagging is always an issue, so you got to make sure somebody's always on top of that. So I'm here to try and help guide you through that whole different process and try and avoid some of those pitfalls and end up with a product that everybody in the city is going to enjoy.
Okay. So in general, Diane has 3 tasks here. One is really just to familiarize herself with our ordinances and our policies and work with the commission. If there's any tweaks to those, changes to those over time, that may be unearthed as we get into the projects. I mean, none of these ordinances were written in stone. What we did is a blend, because we were doing art in both public and private development. Ours is really a blend of a couple different ordinances, and so we did the best we could with writing the ordinances, but maybe there's things that we can learn, and Diane can let us know if there's any changes or policy things. What I thought is kind of help us really, how does this commission, it's really going to, like a playbook, how do we kind of move this along? Task 2 is really just to help us with, we'll be doing the minutes and the agendas and all that still and getting the meeting all set up, but if there's any, documents that Diane is going to prepare, make sure those are on the agenda and, all that. That's really what number 2 is. And then 3 is really the meat of it, which is really how do we take that ordinance 1777 and operationalize that and get ready for the first art installation. So I don't know if you kind of want to walk through real quickly, Diane, kind of what we did before the meeting started is just not soup to nuts, but just kind of a broad overview of kind of what we see here now that we think we have $100,000. And so that is with and we have a little bit more from some of these commercial projects, but we have a multifamily project that came in after the ordinance. We had one that came in before, and we didn't think it was fair to charge them. So they snuck in under the wire, so they didn't pay, and that was fair to them. But the second one, so now we have that money, and we have some other monies coming in for some commercial projects that, and I know Liz is going to come in April to talk about dog park and whether there's any money that we may help contribute there with the art installation at the dog park. So she's going to come back and get some ideas from us. But so why don't you just go through task number 3 real quick, what you see that evolving, I guess.
So, I mean, the way I see this evolving is developing a public art plan first. And that is, what projects do you want to tackle first? How much of your funding do you want to allocate to that? And what is the site where you would like to do that? So let's say you have one project, let's say it's $50,000. That's a good amount of money, particularly for a local artist. And so the first step would be coming up with the RFQ, requests for qualifications. Requests for proposals is generally frowned upon in the industry because basically you're asking the artist to work for free. And I've known a couple places that have tried to do that, and there are a lot of artists who don't even want to touch it. So requests for qualifications is a very democratic way to go about getting an artist to do a project. You develop the call to artists, which is this is the project location, this is the amount of money for the project, here's how you submit your information, your past work images, the past work budgets, all this whole list of things that you ask the artist to submit. But the artist, if someone's involved in public art, that's not a huge job for them because they already have all that stuff lined up. So they basically submit to the project, yes, I'm interested, here's my letter of interest, here's what I want to do for your community. I have some ideas floating around, but I realize that I, as the artist, this is what you'll see in a letter of intent, is that they want to get to know the community first. They want to talk to people on the art commission, they want to talk to the neighborhood, they want to talk to city staff, and they want to get an idea of where that project can go. So you want an artist who really wants to get to know the community. So they submit everything, then you come up with a selection panel, and the selection panel usually involves stakeholders. It usually involves the Arts Commission, a certain number of Arts Commission members, usually a professional artist, someone who has no conflict of interest, someone who is a neighborhood representative, and probably 7 is a good number for a public art selection committee. So the selection committee meets, they look over, let's say you have 50 people who apply, 50 artists, they go through all the slides, they looked over their resume, they've looked over references, and they basically come down to about 3. At that time, usually an artist committee says, we are very clear about who the number 1 artist is for this project. Sometimes it's not clear. Sometimes they'll say, we've got 3 artists, we're on the fence, we like all of them. If you have enough funding, you ask those 3 artists to come up with a proposal, and you give them maybe $5,000 to develop that proposal. And then they come back to the group, they present their proposal, and at that point, you can select the number 1 artist. Always select an alternate. I've had a couple of instances where the selected artist, for whatever reason, could not follow through with the project, and we had to go to the number 2 artist, and it still worked out. But it meant not having to go back and look at all the submissions and whatever. The artist gets under contract. The contract specifies very clearly the duties of what the artist is responsible for and what city staff is responsible for. And usually you include in there the artist has to attend a certain number of public meetings and so on and so forth. So at that point, you've selected the artist is under contract, the artist starts thinking about what he or she wants to do in terms of creating something for that particular site. The artist has probably about 4 weeks to do that, comes back to the stakeholder group, and it can be either the stakeholder group and the art commission or one meeting for both. And they say, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I've researched the budget. I know I can create this artwork for this amount of money. It would take me maybe 6 weeks to fabricate it, and I would anticipate installing it by such and such a date. And so that takes off from there. You make sure that there's an engineer involved. You make sure that city staff is involved in terms of how that artist is going to install it and what the materials are. That this is going to be durable. You even do get down to the nuts and bolts that are going to be used. You don't want them to rust. I mean, it just gets down to that nitty-gritty level so that you can look at that project 10 years and you'll have regular maintenance. The artist has to submit a maintenance plan or a conservation plan. But if it's built correctly, installed correctly, and it's maintained correctly, clean or whatever, it can last for 10, 20, 30 years. Sometimes even longer, depends. City of Seattle, they have a public art contract, and they only tell the artist, we are going to keep your artwork for 25 years. And that's one of the ways that they kind of forestall this idea of having to deaccession. Another thing I'd recommend is getting a deaccession policy and a donation policy. You're going to have people artists who are going to say, I want to donate this artwork. I don't know where you guys want to put it, but I want to turn this artwork over to you. And that involves a lot of research. You want to look and make sure that, first of all, it's an original work of art and that the artist has the title of the artwork and actually can donate it to the city. You want to make sure you have a suitable place to put it. And you have to make sure that it fits what your collection is all about. You don't want to accept just any piece of artwork. So, and deaccession, if you have an artwork that is really falling apart, it would cost a huge amount of money to restore it. You want to consider taking it out of your collection. And there's a whole process for doing that.
I'm hearing the word succession, I'm hearing secession. Say that again?
Okay, so if you have something, those are basically museum terms that have been adopted by public art, but you have an art collection, let's say museum, public art, city, whatever, and you have a piece of art that no longer fits in your collection for a variety, I mean, there could be 10 reasons. One, the upkeep may be too expensive. Two, the aesthetics just don't work for that city. Three, the site where it's located is being radically changed. So there are all these lists, and you have to say, okay, we want to take this out of the art collection, and then there are various things you can do with it, depending on if it was depending on the contract or if it was a gift, what the gift paperwork says. So deaccession just simply means going through the process of taking it out of your collection.
Okay. And then I had, in general, I've been part of cities where you have policies on copyright and who gets it, and that's all can be built into this here.
So, yeah, definitely the artist keeps the copyright, but in public art contracts that I've been working with for the last several years, we ask the artist to waive their VERA rights, the Visual Artists' Rights Act. And that was in one of the webinars that was sent to you by the APA. Sarah Odenkirk is an expert in this. She's an art lawyer. And I'll just give you one cautionary tale. In Los Angeles, there was a federal building that had a giant, like 3-story mural of an artist, Ed Ruscha. Ed Ruscha is a pretty well-known contemporary artist, particularly in LA. The mural was done by a fellow artist, Kent Twitchell. I don't know how it happened, but somebody in the federal government decided to paint over the mural. And the artist sued, Kent Twitchell sued, and was awarded $1.1 million. So the idea of changing, altering any of those things to an artwork can have huge consequences legally.
So that's something that has to be stipulated in the contract then.
Absolutely, yeah. The contract says that you, as the artist, keep the copyright. And what I compare it to is you go to a bookstore and you buy a book. So you own that copy of the book. You don't own the rights that the author has to that book. So usually in the contract, there's a clause that says we would like to use images of your artwork for all educational purposes, but not for commercial purposes. When I worked in Goodyear, the sculpture I was talking about with the elongated baseball, I walked into the team shop one day and there was a 6-inch statue of that sculpture, and I just about fell on the floor. And I went to the person who was in charge of it, and it was a team shop. It was, run independently. I said, "Gee, these are really cute. Where'd they come from?" "Oh yeah, we have somebody knocking them off in China, whatever." It's like, "Do you have an agreement with the artist?" "No, I didn't know we needed one." So I called the artist. I said, "You need to know this." And he went to his art lawyer, and they worked out an agreement. So now he receives a certain percentage of that. He could have sued massively, but it worked out well. The artist was very, very easy to work with. He saw this as a chance of another chance of getting his work out there. So they came to an agreement between the team shop and the artist, and he received a certain amount per every item sold.
And just for a reminder, those 2 webinars, if you haven't seen them, I think those are, again, I think we sent the links. We can send them again. If you haven't seen them, you want us to send them again?
Can you send them again, please?
I think that's, as we go forward, I think that is just kind of catches everybody up to speed at one time. So we'll send those links out again. Okay. I think we could talk, any other questions for Diane from the phone? Jared or anything on the phone, any questions, kind of what we're doing, or we're not throwing in the towel, we're getting some, we're throwing out the life preserver. That's what we're doing. All right, I think we could talk a little bit about the work plan, maybe, and how that little overlap or not, just quickly. I know because Diane mentioned a donation policy, that's in the work plan, but things like that. So kind of what some of the stuff relates, right? The priority project list. I don't know that we think we need an artist database anymore. So maybe that's a task we don't need. donation policy, we just mentioned the RFP. So many of these things are kind of already on here, so.
Why wouldn't we need an artist database?
Well, I think with the way you do the solicitation, I think we can work from either the way you advertise it.
Okay.
I don't know that we would need to. I don't know, Diane, what, instead of us, I think the idea was, it sounded like Ryan was going to go create some database, and I'm not sure if that, we need him to do that. So that was that right,
I'd just be
Sydney?
curious as to what the purpose of the database is. If it's creating a database of artists to do possible arts commission, then you're going to be dealing with a pretty limited number of artists. It's probably best that you do like an RFQ for each commission. The only time I've seen an artist database work pretty well is for very, very minute projects like a mural. And the people will get a list of muralists together, and they have to show an interest. But depending on when they submit their information, if enough time goes by, they may no longer be interested. So,
How do you plan to get the RFQ information out? Who are you going to send it to? We don't have a database.
well, you probably wouldn't advertise it to specific artists unless there are artists that you know. And then once an RFQ goes public and is issued, feel free to send it to any artist that you know. But mostly, RFQs or calls to artists are broadcast on certain websites. Arizona Commission on the Arts, City of Phoenix, they have a website for artists. If this is, like 50,000 on up, then it probably should go to Americans for the Arts, which is a list of arts opportunities. So there are probably 10 places where you can advertise this call, and it's where artists look on a regular basis for jobs. WestAF is another one, Western States Arts Federation, based in Colorado. These are all free websites that artists troll, basically, and they look for, they're probably looking for certain budgets in certain locations. There's a public artist, and he'll only look at budgets of $300,000 on up. But if you've got 25,000, you'll probably start with a local artist. And one of the things that I think is really important is giving local artists opportunities.
Well, that's why I was thinking of it. I mean, you mentioned Arizona. You have the Artists Guild. You have the Arizona Arts
Yes.
Organizations. The reason we talked about the database is we were talking about the local arts organizations in the state of Arizona, because obviously there are going to be many that are not qualified to do that kind of work, but there are some out there that are. And we want to make sure that the local artists, meaning Arizona, get a fair shot before we
Right.
start sending it out internationally or wherever.
Yeah, I
think
totally
that's
agree.
important. I think, it's an important thing to know that the Apache Junction Arts Commission is focused on using Arizona artists.
Well, in that case, I'm not sure we need an actual artist database, but just a good database of the organizations that are in
Right.
the state.
Yeah,
That we
yeah,
can-
and they can distribute
Like
it
the
to their members.
The AAA, the Mesa Art League, the Artists of Superstitions, whatever.
Right.
And out through the rest of the state.
Right,
Yeah. Arizona Commission on the
Right.
Arts is a really great database.
yeah.
Because you have artists from every city, and not just in Arizona, but outside of Arizona, checking that.
What was that?
Arizona
This is
Commission on the Arts.
Commissioner Klett. Recently, I saw a thing on my Facebook, just on my regular crawl. It was put out there by the Greater Phoenix Greater Economic Council. They were doing a virtual art show, and they were looking for local artists. And all I did was click a few buttons, download my stuff, and I actually got accepted. So it looks like that's another way that is trending to get out there and get local artists involved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a great exhibition opportunity.
The crawl, it kept coming up on my feed, and it was put out by the Phoenix Greater Economic Council. And what they did was they just did a virtual show. I know we're not doing that. But they asked for local people to submit their work. They were overwhelmed. They said there were over 400 artists submitted their stuff. And again, it was, I don't think it was for all professionals. It was just local artists. Again, a new way to reach out to people.
Yeah, there are a number of local outlets.
I have to pat myself on the back. I did get accepted. I don't know how many pieces or what and when, but that was pretty nice.
Congratulations.
Because I know in this area, we have several muralists who they're not going to work on the scale of $100,000, $300,000, but they do things like we had a muralist that did the Paws and Claws Center that I helped connect a couple of years ago. So it would be nice to reach out on the smaller projects, especially. We may be doing a wall where we're only going to be willing to pay $50,000 or $25,000 or less for somebody. So it would be nice to be able to reach out to those local artists.
Yeah,
we have.
I think that's.
Yeah, I agree. For something like that, for small projects or little local people.
Anything else on the work plan, Cindy? So we may update this work plan as we're kind of working through this over the next few months. So,
Any other questions that I can answer? People at home, people in the room.
We'll think of something later. We'll come up with something.
Okay.
You have Ryan Vise here as well. I apologize for my tardiness. Had some technical issues. Sorry, Jared, am I speaking over you?
Ryan, we can't hear you. You want to repeat that one more time?
Just wanted to let you know that I was able to join. I'm following along online the best I can, but thank you for joining us today, Diane.
Thank you.
well, I think we made it through most of the agenda.
Okay.
And I think we're maybe on number 12. We don't really have a staff report. I think that kind of just summarized our staff report and everything else. So maybe we're on new agenda items and meeting dates. So the one I did mention was the off-leash dog park that you mentioned last month. So we're going to have Liz Langenbach here for sure. Anything else, Sydney, you can think of? And we'll obviously, Diane will be back. We'll make sure we coordinate with something on the agenda as to articulating some of those work items that she's going to help us with. So the other thing I think to add, I think it's in the work plan, but I think we'll know what our revenue is. We'll check with finance department and double check on our revenue so that you know how much we've gotten from commercial, how much we've gotten on the multifamily. And we do have a couple multifamily projects that are being proposed. So that's part of what Sydney and I know, kind of what's in the pipeline. And we're seeing some multifamily other projects being proposed. So I think now is not too soon to get started with getting ourselves really moving much more quickly on this. So appreciate Diane being here, and I appreciate you guys letting us kind of move to the back row here. So, Chairman Bice, we're on number 12. If you want to take our number 12, if you want to take over on a motion, does anybody have anything that wants to bring up for future agenda? All right, so maybe nothing on that one. So I think call for motion on future agenda.
Okay.
I don't know who to ask, Chair Bice or Liz now to.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I can hear you now,
Okay.
Larry.
He can
Sure. And again, I'll just reiterate that the work plan is an ongoing item. So the discussion about locations and any adjustments to that work plan is already on the docket for next month's meeting. But is there a call for any additional items from any of the committee members? All right. With that, thanks, Larry. We'll move on to selection of meeting dates, time, and location. Our regular meeting date is at 5:30 p.m. So if we were keeping with that consistent, we would meet on April 12th at 5:30 in council chambers. Is there a motion to select that date and time?
This is Commissioner Ham. I move that the Public Art Commission hold a regular meeting on April 12th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. in the City Council Chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard.
I'll second the motion.
Second?
I'll second it. This is Liz.
Okay, Commissioner, Chair Byth,
Yes.
Commissioner Danford,
Yes.
Commissioner Ham,
Yes.
Commissioner Klett. Did we lose her? Commissioner Klett?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry, I was having, my mute wouldn't go off.
okay. Commissioner Nicholas?
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Liz, do you want to ring us out?
No, you can go ahead and do it.
All right. I guess with that, it is 6:21 p.m., and with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn this session of the Apache Junction Public Arts Committee.